What is your name and what are you going to talk about today?
So my name's Nick Minns. I am a second year student. I'm an avid mental health advocate and also a mental health podcast host as well. So my podcast it's called the Beard Podcast. It's available on Spotify, Amazon, Google Play and Apple Podcasts as well. And I'm here today to talk about my mental health journey.
Could you give us a 101 of what mental health is?
Mental health is a journey. It's something that you go through. There's different kind of stages in your life you need to go through to experience mental health. It's not being able to really deal with things in the I suppose the normal sense. I think the things I've learnt along the way is that also kind of gives you a bit of a special power as well.
Could you please give us a brief description of what mental health means to you personally?
It's meant a lot of changes in my life. It's meant really kind of confronting it as well. I suppose what it's meant to me now is that it's actually allowed me to challenge myself, my own interpretation of who I am. And it's, I think, allowed me to rediscover part of me which maybe was hidden for quite a long time.
How did your mental health affect you growing up?
For the longest time, I maybe felt like it didn't. I didn't really kind of feel like anything really affected me when I was a kid. But I was always kind of quite emotional. If things happened, I tend to withdraw quite easily into myself. I was always quite sociable with people, but when things really affected me, I didn't kind of talk to people, didn't talk to my parents. I just withdrew away. I tended to try and deal with it on my own. That led to me having real self-esteem and confidence issues, which, as I say, I wouldn't have thought about it until I actually started challenging them perceptions of myself.
Have you felt you've been marginalised or stereotyped?
I'd say the only person who I think marginalised myself was me, because I didn't tell anybody about it for the longest time. I put myself in a box because there was all them stereotypes out there. I've had work colleagues say things which were slightly inappropriate and me feel like I was maybe ready to open up. As soon as I've said them things, I just withdrew. At one time I was at work and I was starting to struggle. I was struggling at the time, and I really felt like I was going to say to our gaffer at the time, just say to him, I'm struggling. I'm really struggling. I just need some extra help. Is there anything I can get through work? He was in as an acting manager, and one of the other managers, he was off sick at the time, and there was rumours going around that he'd had a bit of a nervous breakdown. And some of them were talking, and I just stepped into the kind of conversation. And the manager turned around and said, "Oh, yeah, so-and-so's off with stress and he's losing it, probably licking windows somewhere." And that sort of, it just straight away just made me think, oh, I can't say it now, because that's how they're just going to view me. That's how they're going to see me. And I thought, that's someone who's in a high position in a business where really they should be supporting people. But yeah, I think sometimes those words, I think people are a lot more thoughtful of the words they were going to use before they used them. So I think the only person who really marginalised myself was me, but it was because I was afraid of all the stigmas associated with mental health at the time, and that just kind of made me not want to admit really what was going on.
Has this happened at the university, or have you felt quite accepted?
I had a few hiccups when I started university. I think things were still quite fresh, but I've never really had any bad experiences with anybody, or everybody's been quite receptive if I've said that I'm having a bad day with regards to my mental health or my depression's kicked in, because I can kind of sense it when it's about to happen. A couple of days before, I tend to get little signals that maybe things are changing for me and I maybe need to start stepping back a bit. So if I've ever needed to do that, people have been really accepting. So it has been a good experience at the university.
Could you do some myth busting around stereotypes surrounding mental health?
It's okay to not be okay. That's the big one. So I think a lot of people think, and I used to think, if you have a mental health condition, or it's even down to the same things with SPLDs, these sort of stereotypes, you get kind of marginalised into these boxes where I have to, because I'm a man as well. It's this thing of men have this, we have to be strong. It's personally, I think it's a load of rubbish. Everybody will have the breaking points and these old stereotypes from being a man, you have to be strong. I think you can be twice as strong by having emotions and being able to front things, really. I think another one is talking is as good a medicine as anything. Definitely opening up and talking to people and sharing my experiences as well with others was a massive breakthrough for me. I think for years I just thought, don't speak, just get on with it. That was the kind of, I suppose, the old-fashioned kind of British stiff upper lip, if you like. Your grandparents have it where it's just get on with it, you'll be all right, just keep plodding on, and sometimes you can't, sometimes you need to stop, take stock and talk about things. And I think another one is don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes people, if you admit it, that you need help, you're weak. You're not. If anything, that makes you twice as strong because you're actually admitting things and you're willing to drive forward and get that help as well. So those are, I think, the big myths that can be busted straight away.
How could the people around you and the university do better?
There's ways everyone can be better. I suppose the big thing for me is I just think there needs to be more empathy. People need to be more empathetic in people's situations and people need to be more understanding. Everybody leads different lives, everybody has different things going on. No two people are the same with regards to the personal circumstances. So sometimes in the past, I've done it so say for example, being in a workplace, if people haven't come in and have said because of this situation that they've had, I've been kind of really annoyed by it and think, it's all going to fall on me. But I've never really kind of put myself in the shoes of what's been going on with them, what might be going on in their home life, and really opening my eyes to the bigger picture of, what is going on, if you like, behind closed doors sometimes. And I think it is like a big thing is empathy, acceptance. And also from, if you feel like a staff perspective and a student's perspective, is to understanding of the pressures that each are under. The staff are under pressure because of the things that they've got to teach and all their deadlines and what goes on behind closed doors with them. And the students have the same. So they both need to really work more together as a team.
How do you feel the media represents mental health?
It's better than it was, but there's still quite a way to go. I've always had this thought of, I never understand why there's things like Mental Health Week or Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day, and Black History Month and things like this, and those sorts of I've never understood why these things aren't just integrated into education from a younger age. There shouldn't be just a day; it should be every day. Should be these things. We should be thinking about these things all the time. Stepping out of the epidemic of 2020 with regards to COVID, I think we're already within a new mental health epidemic at the moment, but sometimes the media have a real tendency to take down pages on Instagram which are actually doing great work, which I think is really morally wrong, because there's some fantastic people who I've worked with who are doing amazing things on Instagram to raise awareness, to help people, give people a daily dose of, don't worry about this, but these are the things which are going on, being real about it. And because it doesn't conform to how Instagram has seen it, they've decided that we're going to shadow ban you or you're going to be taken down. The media still has a long, long way to go to make mental health be seen in a positive light rather than a negative light. I suppose the good side of it is when you see a lot of the individuals who have come out with, like Ruby Wax does a massive amount of work, Stephen Fry in his documentaries, really kind of giving the real stories. And it makes you think a guy who is that intelligent, who you maybe think has got nothing going on, can all of a sudden just go into these massive, deep depths of despair and, even like suicidal tendencies and things. But seeing the positive light that's been put on that and the amount of talks that he does, and he's been a real big inspiration, I think, along the way as well. Ruby Wax as well, she's massive on social media. I think if I was to say about a negative stories, you've got to think of the Caroline Flack incident. Someone who was struggling with mental health was put in the limelight, and no support there for her. And I suppose the media did not think about how their actions were actually going to affect someone who had a current mental health problem, and unfortunately it led to ending a life. These are the things where that amount of pressure and scrutiny is put on someone who's really struggling is where I think a lot of the issues tend to lie with the media.
Is there anything else you would like to say, or anything you'd like anyone to know about mental health?
I think the big thing for me is don't be afraid of it. I think when people hear the term mental health and they hear people talk about I have a mental health issue, people tend to get very scared about it and about that diagnosis. I know from experience that's how I felt. It kind of straight away made me quite worried that, oh God, what am I going to do about this, and how bad is it going to get? And I suppose when I look back now, I think I was right at that time to be a bit nervous about it, but now I think I should have embraced that more at the time and thought, okay, what's the next step? It took a while, but through understanding it more, and I think that's another thing. A lot of people want to learn about it when they learn that they've got something like depression or anxiety. They don't want to learn about it. I think there's that fear around, I don't want to learn about it. It's anxiety, it's depression, I don't need to. But yeah, learn about it, because it's an interesting subject as well. And don't be afraid to share your story with people, because everybody's got their own story, everybody's going on their own journey. But some of those things along the way will be similar, and that is what can make you not feel like you're just all alone. And I suppose that was another thing. Feeling alone and isolated can be a big thing, but just be aware that you're not alone, and people are around who can help you and talk to you, and that can be a friend, a family member, or it can be a complete stranger.